the question to think as if you're in the shoes of the other, I think that's very important. Also, when it comes to resolving bilateral issues, I think one of the lessons we have learned in that is know the concerns of the other, and concerns compatible with your own. We are not the center of the universe, this region. And when decision makers in Europe discuss issues, often this is not exactly the priority. European Union had a steady stream of crises in the last years. The global financial crisis, the Eurozone crisis, which in part was tested the unity of the North and the South to some extent, the migration crisis. One important country left, the United Kingdom. And so all this, and the narrative crisis, where some member states think that the fundamental contract of the Union is not exactly respected by other member states, right, on issues of rule of law and democracy, etc. So the question is, in some minds, when you think in their shoes, what do we do with these 6 countries in the Western Balkans? And do they bring solutions or do they bring us more problems? So this is the mindset. And I think the more we prove to them and their public, what are you doing in the circus in the first place? Help them explain to their public opinion why this is a must, why this is an imperative to complete the unification of Europe. One, now, let's say, to be the advocate of our side. It was a British politician who once in Skopje said, if you cannot ride 2 horses at the same time, what are you doing in the circus in the first place? It's not for you. So I think the European Union, no matter how busy it is, does not have the luxury of ignoring or parking the region that is geographically in its midst. The ambition to be a global player, this discussion partly on the future, on the conference of the future of strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy is about geopolitical power. And if you cannot make a difference in a region that you surround, where you have countries that want to be part of you, where you had a promise 18 years ago from Thessaloniki, where in the world you're going to make a difference? In Syria? With China? No, you won't. It is this region where the EU is tested first because the leverage is the biggest in this region. Not only because of our geography, it's also because of the political context. So I think this task is important. We should know the context. We are not the #1 priority, and it's not easy to convince some of those countries. At the same time, they should also know that leaving the region and dealing only with the more pressing issues will be probably more costly than dealing with the region. And I'm going to end with an analogy I did recently in Thessaloniki. The Greek Minister for Europe, Varvitsiotis, gathered the region to remind others about the promise made in 2003, that the region, that the future of the Balkans is European, is with Europe, that the promise of membership, if you comply with the criteria, when you're ready, etc., etc. We are like, if Europe is a house, the 6 Balkan countries are one room in that house. That house is more or less governed based on a set of rules agreed by everyone in. They have electricity, this is a complicated organism. It works. The house will suffer if there is one area that is not plugged in the system. If this region is not governed by the rule of law, does not fight corruption, if it's not democratic, if its policies are not aligned with the rest of the continent will suffer. So our task is joint, our goal is common, but it's not only the responsibility of the region, it is also the European Union, and I don't want to criticize the European Union knowing that this is a complicated organism. It has a commission with 30,000 people working for it in Brussels. It also has 27 member states that on the issue of enlargement need a consensus. Every single those 27 member states should assume its responsibility today, thinking about the stakes of losing the hope that this is actually possible. And for my nation, after all these years of waiting, after everything that we have done to climb the hill and resolve the obstacle, North Macedonia did not lose all of those years because we were part of the Yugoslav wars. We were not. We lost it because of a dispute. We solved the dispute. We made tremendous democratic progress in the last years. Now we have another obstacle. Not very related, and on some occasions goes against the European values that we all subscribe to.